Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Russ Austin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, glad to be here.
Awesome. And we had a great Banff Western connection.
Did we ever?
How many of Banff conferences do you think you've been to?
I guess I haven't counted, but it was 15 years ago.
Right.
When I met Kevin Singh from DFH, and we started to talk about putting together a Canadian referral network.
Really? So that was even well pre leading our involvement.
I think we had looked at leading RE and been turned down the first time we looked.
Right.
And there was a Canadian network that had just collapsed, and so we were trying to talk about how to put things together, and that's all evolved to us joining, us getting DFH involved. And now all of the Canadian content in Leading RE is amazing.
So many people, especially when I was at Banff, haven't actually heard of what the Banff Western Connection is all about or what it is. Lots of people in governance have. But
Right.
Can you quickly give an overview about what's involved at the conference?
Well, the conference is sponsored by the provincial organizations of the West. So it's Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. Areas, basically. And they put together the conference every couple of years, or every other year, I should say, just to be accurate with that. And they bring in a lot of organizational speakers and training for boards and organizations. On the tail end of this, they put in a very, very good short, day and a half, 2 days, 2-day realtor conference that's just outstanding as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
The value is huge.
So let's get into some of the stuff that we pulled away from there, some of the stuff they can use in their business, and some of the stuff overall, why conferences are obviously critical in a lot of respect. I want to quickly start just, the closing session was a gentleman named Mike Lipkin. And Mike is kind of a motivational speaker, has a research company. I think he's based out of Toronto. But Mike made this statement. He was all about becoming a champion, and very inspirational. It was great. I love everything that Mike does. But he had one statement that really stuck with me, and it was that it's always day one. And he means, and that saying is that it's always day one of whatever comes next. And in your life, when you hear some of this stuff, and you think, God, maybe I should do this, or I thought about doing that 2 years ago, or anything else. Well, today can be day one, because whatever's going to come next in your life, regardless of what happens in the past or where you are, it's always day one. Today is day one of whatever comes next. So you have a choice to build your business, be whoever you want to be, or anything else. Right this second, you can make a decision, and today can be your day one. So consider that as Russ takes us through some of the takeaways.
And and kick in, get started on something. The one thing about conferences that I see is they always force you to look at your business. And you take a step back and take a peek at what you're doing and what you're not doing and what other people are doing, and it just forces you to go to that spot. So I encourage people to attend regularly.
Yes.
When we talk about Banff, this is the cheapest one you can attend. There's no airfare. You don't have
Canadian pricing.
Canadian pricing. You don't have to stay in the Banff Springs Hotel, although it's sure nice if you do, and you're there and can quickly change and everything else. But attend regularly. The conference that you really should attend is Leading RE.
Yeah.
From our point of view, and there is one next month in Miami, and it's a pretty difficult one to get to and go through that whole thing. But next year, I assume it's the end of February. I tried to look it up this morning quickly. I couldn't find the date for next year yet, but it'll be the end of February in beginning of March in Vegas. And that makes it easy.
Yeah, for us, Vegas is just hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, it's almost cheaper to go to Vegas than it is. Well, it is cheaper because the rooms are cheaper.
That's right.
Than to go to Banff. And that's a yearly conference that tends to go back and forth east to west, but not necessarily on a yearly schedule. So look forward to that. Speaking of the Leading RE conference and the next thing, one of the things, I attended a couple of classes where Matterport came up. And I don't know if you guys know what Matterport is, but matterport.com. Go look at it. It's a photography option, and it just gives you a huge edge.
It's three-dimensional virtual tours.
Yeah.
And you'll see this sort of three-dimensional model almost of the house, and it takes you through the house as if you're in there. And they even have goggles. You can use your cell phone to go on the goggles for the augmented reality, not augmented reality, the virtual reality piece of it as well.
Yeah, and it's just a neat tool. And so there was two agents on from Toronto area talking about this. Somebody that sold cottages a couple hours out of town, and they said how much it had helped their business because it cut down on showings. People would see the properties in the city, and then when they would come, they were much more qualified. So that was a great thing. I learned about...
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I love this. I love this part.
I learned about Matterport 3 years ago at the Leading RE conference, and I looked at it. And they were there demoing it then. And so, you know, they're sitting there saying, this is breaking technology, it's brand new stuff. And I walked in and said, well, I heard about that years ago.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the advantages of going to the conferences. And the nice thing about Matterport is you can hire a photographer to do it, and there's a couple in Calgary, and you can find them off the Matterport website. Or you can buy a camera yourself, and it's probably $5,000 Canadian the time you buy the group of stuff to get it.
4,000 US, yep.
Yeah, to get involved in it. But it's just a neat extra edge, and the people that use this use it often, and you're going to see more of this type of photography.
Perfect.
There was another one there at the same time, but being at conferences gives you that edge to see what's going to be there in the future.
What?
And you...
Yeah, just to build on that, and we'll talk about AI here in a second. One of the things that's interesting about that is they're saying, it's such a great statement, they said, we hope that the price of Matterport cameras never ever come down, because the people who have already bought it, who are early adopters, who are hiring the photographers to do it, the less people that buy them, the less people there will be that do them. And I'll tell you, this is really something that will set you apart as you do your listing.
Yeah, it's a huge edge.
The other trend that's coming up as we're talking about technology here is artificial intelligence. And people would think, well, we always think about smart computers and stuff. And actually where this is coming in is the concept of bots. And what happens is that you have a website chat, or you have a number that someone text messages. And when you text it to it, you'll say, hi, I saw your listing at whatever, or I saw your MLS number. Can you give me some details on it? And you're actually not talking to a human being on the end, but you're talking to a computer that recognizes plain language and text, artificial intelligence, and will start responding for you. So a computer comes back and says, great, thank you so much for the text. Before I get you that information, can I grab your name? And they'll say, yeah, here's my name. And awesome, what are you looking for? Well, what's the price of the property? Oh, great, well, the price is this. And then they say, okay, well, great, how big is it? Well, it's X number of square feet. Awesome, can I get in here, or do you have any other photos? Sure, here's a link to all the photos online. Here's a couple of the kitchen right away, and we'll send the actual photos in the text message or in the message. Do you have any floor plans? And bang, all of a sudden a floor plan appears after you see the 3 dots and everything of like your text messaging back and forth. This thing is incredible, and the technology of this is going to keep going up so much that the public isn't going to realize they're talking to a robot. Now that sounds like a bit of a bait and switch, or sounds like you're not being truthful. These things are not providing advice. They're getting basic information and basic inquiries. And then when I say, can we book a showing? It says, yep, great, let's have a look at, and let me get back to you with a few options, and the lead will come to you, and you guys will set up the showing and get it done. But it's incredible on how some of the basic information, someone can have a relationship, and it starts becoming very, very scalable. If you're talking about getting 1,000 leads a month, or even 100 leads a month, inquire or following up with those leads in an authentic way is quite difficult. So to have this as an intermediary step is really great. And as the technology gets better, we're going to see a lot more of it being utilized as services come down.
Yeah, and what a great way. I mean, if you're going to use the internet to generate leads,
Totally.
and we know that the 1 to 5% return on leads there, you've got to nurture them along, and that would be
Absolutely.
an ideal way to get to step 2, step 3, whatever of that situation. So just back on attending regularly and doing things like that, one of the common notes I heard at Banff this time was communicate with your clients the way they want to be communicated with. And you're watching CIR live today because at the 2010 Leading RE conference, I sat in the crowd and heard them say, communicate with your clients the way they want to do it. So I come back, Lindsey's walking through the Northwest office. I say, how do I do this internet thing with broadcasting? And he said, go look at a website, here it is, see what you can do. I haven't got time today, but I'll catch up to you in a week. Well, a week later, I'd already figured it out. We'd started doing some basic stuff. I got tech involved, and we started the laptop.
Yep.
Followed by the laptop sitting on the phone books, followed by, and we have CIR Live today from this statement that was very prevalent in Banff this weekend.
Yeah.
Still.
So we had one of the realtors there was saying that he did, the 100 transactions that he did, when he talked about his clients and said, how do you best want to be communicated with? 3 of them said Snapchat.
Yeah.
And that was so telling and so interesting. And I don't think you guys all need to go on and learn how to do the rabbit ears and the big long tongue videos on Snapchat and everything else and tell your stories. But maybe you need to set up a profile and make yourself available on there so that if someone does communicate with you that way, that you're at least functional enough to get on. You don't need to build your business off it, but it'd be like ignoring your email at some point because you're just like, well, I don't respond to email. Well, your clients may want you to.
Yeah, well, the whole thing back is ask the client because one of the other sets of classes that I went to was boomers versus millennials versus technology, and it was a danger debate, which was Swanepoel doing a very entertaining segment, but they talked to millennials and said, okay, are boomers dragging their butts as far as technology goes? And at the end of the day, it came out to, yeah, some are, but for the most part, boomers are embracing the technology to the point that they can do what they need to do. And so getting back involved with this, ask your clients how they want to be communicated with.
Absolutely.
Check with them. How are they communicating with you? And make sure you're on that platform, as Lindsey said. That's huge all the way through.
Keep it going.
Keep it going. Storytelling. Now, you talk about storytelling quite a bit through training and the power of storytelling. There was a set of classes just based on this. Storytelling, keep your stories short, to the point. Address the type of person you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a party person, get out there, put a little fun in your stories and keep that going. If you're dealing with a driver that just wants the information, keep your stories short and sweet. But use stories to get to your client, to educate them, and so they gain confidence and understanding through that whole process. Go ahead.
When you look at HGTV, and we've talked about this for years, it's like if HGTV were to do a marketing video about a house, how would they do it differently than somebody else, than a typical realtor? A realtor says, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Lindsey Smith with CIR Realty. I want to welcome you to this gorgeous 2-bedroom home. Let's go and take a look. As you can see here, it has an open foyer, and they're describing the damn photos. Yeah. It's like I can look at the photos and get it, instead of it being like, you know, and it opens up with the Thompsons sitting down at the kitchen table and saying, you know, when our son was born, we realized that we needed a bigger space. And we needed a space where he could grow up and have his friends over and everything else.
Exactly.
And now it's like, that's the way HGTV does it, improving lifestyle and tells about the why behind this home. And so when you see Extreme Home Makeover, any of these, Flip That House, they tell a story. There's obstacles along the way that were overcome. There's heroes. You need to tell that in your marketing. And they really talk about storytelling in video. The days of video of just like, oh, here's the features of a home. Well, the photos are so good these days. The comments are so good. We can get that.
Exactly.
I don't need to sit through a 10-minute property tour on it. But tell a story. And I'll get down to it. You have some more stuff on that. But I just going into obviously telling story through video and then getting into telling a story about the way you do business as well.
Yeah, and it's important when you're telling your stories to relate to your clients, make sure they're getting involved and getting emotionally involved. When you go into storytelling and technology, there was a class that I was unable to attend. No, I selected not to. We had something more fun to do, but there was a class on storytelling and technology and using online reviews to build your presence through that. But as you go back through this, the one key thing that came up in a couple of the other classes I was at is take the relationship from online to in person. And you've talked about this an awful lot. But be careful how you do that. Is kind of, if you're communicating the way they want to communicate with you, you can pretty much jump to this pretty quick. But if you look, a lot of new realtors that have been with us for the last year or two that maybe found us through careers, the first thing that we're doing on the career side is responding to you, usually electronically, sometimes by a phone call. But we're trying to bring that relationship to face,
right,
as soon as we possibly can.
And we've always said people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And the know part and the like part can come online, where you're doing it through video, strategic emails, things like that. But the trust part comes when they meet you.
When they meet you.
Yeah, face to face. And they also trust that you haven't been spamming them. You haven't been harassing them through the process. You've been guiding them through. So it's so important.
Yeah, it is. So the online, the electronic, the artificial intelligence, they're all great, but the personal relationship will trump that every day of the week.
One more final piece on the storytelling bit is, in 2005, I took a course by a guy named Chet Holmes, and it was on Business Growth Master Series anyways, but he talked about using a core story. And what is the purpose of why you do your business the way you do it? What is that driving thing? It's not just, oh, we want to sell a lot of houses. It's like, well why is that? And some of the realtors were talking about building communities. Some of them were talking about helping families. And but it's got to be a story that sort of you can create that has a bit of emotional connection with your clients. And those are the stories that you can tell in your marketing and things like that. Even basic ads and things. Try to be way more engaging through telling stories.
Yeah, and just pick the topics where you've had a challenge in the past and you've got through it. Break it down, make it simple, have it in your head, and go from there. I also sent out an email to the other managers just to say, look, did you have any takeaways that you wanted to bring up? And Terrence sent me a couple that, one of which just goes back to the agent themselves. You can send out emails, make phone calls, do your marketing, text messages. You're all in control of this, and this goes back to day one. Every day is day one. Let's get started. You have control of that, and if you do the right things, and sometimes if you just do the wrong things, but you do them consistently.
You got it. Yep. Just do something.
Yeah, do something. You will succeed if you're out there doing things like that. Terrence also talked about the personality types and that we all need to sit back and have a look and make sure that we're prepared to deal with people with different personalities, the way they want to be dealt with, the way they want to be communicated with. So some good stuff there.
Keep it going.
So in summary for me, every time I go to a conference, I learn something about my business. Always learn something about my business. I learn what I should and shouldn't be doing, even if it's just a little segment of it, but it comes back. I always come out with an idea that'll give me an edge. It's just, and it might not happen while I'm sitting there, but as I review this stuff and I go through and as I put this stuff together for this meeting, I just getting it all in front of me and saying, okay, what should I be doing or what could I do to improve my business?
It pushes you, keeps you on your toes.
It does so, right? The people I meet at conferences and the resources you get that you can go back and tap into later, it's huge, absolutely huge. And I was sitting having lunch and there wasn't any room in the lunchroom at the tables, so I went into the room next door where they do presentations and I just grabbed a couple of seats and I'm sitting there and I had a couple of gals come and talk to me from Medicine Hat who may be good prospects in the future if we decide to span out for satellite offices.
Absolutely.
On the other side of the row was somebody from BC. And you're just gaining knowledge and meeting people that are going to build to that situation. If you need somebody in that market, you've got a place to call, and maybe not even for a referral. But I can send and receive referrals, and I meet more leading RE members, even at this kind of conference. I mean, Dexter was there, or Kevin from Dexter Real Estate in Vancouver I'd never met.
Yep.
And he had some great stuff to tell us about what they're doing. And so I end up, at the end of the day, gaining a competitive edge and getting something from these that always.
Awesome. Russ, give us your final thoughts. We got to wrap up here.
It's time to go. I heard Ron explaining to somebody at the broker forum what's made CIR what it is today. And Ron said, and he wasn't talking to me, he was talking to somebody else, so I hope he gives me permission to use this. But
Too late.
Said, yeah,
Live
too late,
TV.
Ron? Yeah. He said, for years, we've had to compete with franchises.
Yep.
And they have the big name. They have more exposure than we had. And he said, so we've always had to be better than the franchise to compete. We've always had to be better. And this, I mean, I'm in my 30th year in real estate and coming up to 30 years with CIR. And every year that I've been here, I've seen improvements. And it's these little things that have built into a huge, massive advantage as far as CIR is concerned. So when I heard Ron explain the brokerage that way and talk about the perceived value of franchises, it kind of made me sit up because I've never described it that way. I've never thought of it that way. All of that advantage has made us, as you saw earlier, #1 brokerage in the Calgary market.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's huge. And we may be #1 in the province. We can't,
Yeah.
It's hard to figure that out because we don't have access to all of that. So I'd like you all to take a step and kind of commit to look at leading RE next year in Vegas. It will be, I would assume, the end of February, beginning of March. And it's reasonably easy and cheap when you're in Vegas. It's a quick pop. I'd like to see us all there. And my very last point is our tagline is, because a great experience begins with a great agent. What are you doing to make yourself a great agent?
I love that. Love that. Russ, awesome.
Hey.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your insights in Banff as well. Totally great. We're going to turn it over to Kirsten here, and Kirsten's going to give you guys some incredible marketing, show you some of the incredible marketing tools they got brewing. So we'll talk to you guys in a bit.